What if nobody on Earth could tell a lie for one full day? Within the first hour, your morning small talk collapses because "I'm fine" and "you look great" stop being available options. By lunch, entire industries built on polite fiction start seizing up. And by nightfall, the domino chain reaches something you never expected could break: the financial system itself. I'm Nova, and this is Nova. Explains What If, where I take one impossible premise and chase it until it breaks something bigger than you expected. Today's premise: a single day with 0 lies, big or small. Psychologists estimate the average person tells around 1 to 2 lies a day, most of them harmless. So what actually happens when that supply hits 0? Let's count down 6 systems that quietly run on small dishonesty, from your morning compliments all the way to the global economy. Number 6. Social lubricant lies. These are the smallest ones. I love your haircut. No traffic at all. I'm not busy. Go ahead. Psychologists call this prosocial deception, and studies on everyday lying, like the classic diary research from psychologist Bella DePaulo, found most lies exist purely to protect feelings, not to gain anything. Now imagine you can't tell a single one. Your coworker asks how their presentation went. You flatly answer that it was disorganized and 10 minutes too long. Your friend asks if you like their new apartment, and you describe the mildew smell in detail. Within hours, casual conversation gets exhausting because every exchange now carries real emotional weight instead of a comfortable social buffer. Here's the domino. When small compliments vanish, people stop trusting compliments they do hear elsewhere because they know the option to fake one no longer exists. So even genuine praise starts landing as suspiciously intense. Trust in tone breaks before trust in facts does. That erosion is exactly what sets up the next collapse: the workplace, where honesty was never supposed to be optional in the first place, but somehow still relied on lies to function. Number 5. Workplace trust lies. Organizational psychology research on managerial communication shows leaders routinely soften bad news. We're not doing layoffs right now. Your job is safe. To prevent panic that can itself tank productivity, a pattern researchers call strategic ambiguity. Now picture your manager can't do that anymore. By 10 a.m., you're told directly that your department has a 40% chance of cuts within the month. Nobody can say otherwise because nobody can lie. Productivity doesn't rise from the honesty. It craters because uncertainty, stated plainly and constantly, is measurably worse for focus than uncertainty left vague. Teams stop finishing tasks and start job hunting mid-shift. Here's the ripple nobody predicts. HR systems built on polite performance reviews collapse too, because meets expectations can't survive contact with total honesty. So employees learn exactly, brutally, where they rank against every coworker, in writing the same day. That destroys internal cooperation fast. And once workplaces stop trusting shared information, the exact same mechanism jumps somewhere far more dangerous. International diplomacy, where vague language isn't rudeness, it's the entire safety mechanism. Number 4. Diplomatic language. In international relations, phrases like "concerning developments" or "we urge restraint" are deliberately vague. Scholars call this constructive ambiguity, a real tool used in treaty negotiations for decades precisely because plain honesty between governments can be destabilizing. Now remove the option to hedge. A diplomat can no longer say a neighboring nation's actions are merely concerning. They must state, precisely, that they believe it signals military intent. Ambassadors who spent careers softening tension are suddenly forced into blunt assessments. Live, on record. Negotiations that depended on face-saving exits stop working, because nobody can claim a misunderstanding that didn't happen. Here's the domino nobody sees coming. Financial markets watch diplomatic language as a signal, and traders read tone shifts within minutes. Blunt, honest statements between nations spike volatility instantly, because markets that priced in decades of careful hedging now have to price in raw uncertainty instead. That's the exact bridge into our next collapse. Because global markets themselves were never built for total honesty either. They were built on confidence, which is a very different thing from truth. Number 3. Market confidence. Economists have long shown financial markets run on expectations, not facts. A company's stock price reflects what investors believe will happen, And confidence itself is a real, measurable economic force, sometimes called animal spirits by economist John Maynard Keynes. Executives routinely say things like, "We remain optimistic about the quarter, even when internal numbers look shaky," because that phrase alone can stabilize a stock. Now that sentence becomes illegal to fake. A CEO forced into total honesty admits, on a live earnings call, that quarterly revenue missed projections by 12% and morale internally is low. Within minutes, the stock drops sharply. Not because the company changed, but because the comforting fiction did. Multiply that across every public company reporting that day, and you get a synchronized, honesty-triggered sell-off because markets were pricing in decades of strategic optimism that just evaporated at once. Here's the part that escalates fastest. Panic selling triggers automated trading algorithms designed to detect volatility, which sell even faster, which deepens the crash within the hour. A day without lies doesn't just correct the market, it can outrun it. Quick question for you. Has a doctor ever told you something would probably be fine before they actually knew? Number 2, medical reassurance. Clinical communication research shows doctors frequently use calibrated, hopeful language, not lies exactly, but softened uncertainty, because studies on patient outcomes link excessive fear with worse recovery, a documented effect tied to stress hormones like cortisol suppressing immune function. Now remove all softening. A doctor examining you must state the raw statistical truth. Your specific case has a real chance of complication. No comforting rounding allowed. Hospitals report anxiety spikes within the same day because uncertainty delivered with total precision is still terrifying, sometimes more than a gentler, less exact version of the same risk. Nurses can no longer say, "You're doing great," to ease a patient through pain. They must describe vitals exactly as measured. Here's the ripple. Stress hormone spikes across entire hospital wards create measurable strain on recovery times industry-wide, turning a day of pure honesty into a day of documented worse outcomes. That single result is the strongest evidence in this whole list that lies aren't just social lubricant. Sometimes they're load-bearing. Which brings us to the biggest one. And number 1, the one nobody sees coming, money itself. Currency has no material value. A banknote is trust made physical, backed by nothing but collective belief in institutions, which economists call fiat confidence. Governments routinely project certainty about reserves and debt stability, even during real strain, because admitting doubt can trigger the exact crisis they're trying to prevent. A dynamic historically visible in bank runs. Now force total honesty. A central bank official must publicly state the actual, unvarnished risk level in the national debt outlook. No reassuring rounding. Within hours, the earlier stock collapse merges with this new shock, and depositors, remembering real historical bank runs, start pulling cash simultaneously. ATMs run dry by evening in multiple cities, not because the money vanished, but because the story holding it together did. Here's the final planetary scale irony. The entire modern financial system, the one thing that felt too big to depend on something as small as a lie, turns out to be the most lie-dependent structure on the list. A shared fiction so total that admitting it out loud, even for 24 honest hours, could unravel it faster than any actual crisis ever has. So the domino chain runs from a fake compliment all the way to a global bank run. Because it turns out small, kind, protective lies aren't decoration on top of civilization. Some of them are load-bearing walls. The real science here isn't that honesty is bad. It's that trust and truth are two different currencies, and we've built entire systems assuming they're the same one. Which of these 6 would break first in your life? Tell me in the comments. If this kind of thought experiment messes with your head the way it messed with mine, subscribe to Nova Explains What If, because next time we break something even bigger.